What's going on? What's going on, everybody? Thanks to those joining me live and to those that be joining me on archive. If you're listening on archive right now, hit that like button. There was a long intro there while I was just getting some stuff ready. Nonetheless, those on archive could always jump forward. Those that are here, and I appreciate you for being here. Let it know if you are in the building. Share this video. Of course, hit the like button. And all that, man. You know what I mean? What's going on to Jesus M, A Rod, EJ, Boxing Live, Haplotype, Coco, The Don, Boxing, NYY Mex, and JC are in the building. How's it going, guys? The topic of the day: wait your turn. If you're not going to work for it in boxing, you either take something or you put your hands out and you hope to receive charity. That's just the sport of boxing. The sport of boxing isn't about being fair. The sport of boxing isn't about appeasing everybody. The sport of boxing isn't about any of that. That's not what the sport of boxing is about. I'm just telling you the reality and the way things work. I've been hearing a lot because I do try to listen to different perspectives. So I've been listening to different perspectives. I don't like to stay in an echo chamber. I don't like to avoid hearing what others have to say because you never know. They might make a good point and might even change your mind. You have to be open, especially if you're confident in what you believe. There's no reason why you can't listen to other perspectives unless you are fearful of what you might hear. Unless you feel not that confident about what you believe, then you stay in your echo chamber, right? That's the way it is. That's why echo chambers like to reprimand people and tell them not to go other places. They're grown-ass people being told, oh, don't hang around over there, like not with them. Like that's just the way it works. They want to keep you locked in an echo chamber. Well, that's not the way it works here. Not on DStyleBoxing Live. Not on Hispanics Causing Panic. 8CP. Hashtag 8CP when you share our content on social media. Tag me and I will retweet it. Tag me on Instagram. I will comment. Just FYI. What's up to EJ says Canelo is the best pound for pound in the world today. You kind of profit with the Mexican flags. How's it going, hermano? Got the fight doctor in the building. How is it going? We allow all perspectives here, but you will receive my opinion. Like whether you like it or you don't, you're going to receive it. Check it out. Saul Canelo Alvarez, right now, everyone knows, is going for undisputed. That's what he's been doing. He started with Smith, then moved on to Saunders. The only one that's left is Caleb Plant. Caleb Plant has the IBF strap. And it's your lucky day, Aladdin. Because it's going to be a whole new world for you, Aladdin. Because you got that lamp. You have what the emperor wants. That's what you have. You just so happen to have it, and he wants it. That's all Caleb Plant has ever done. Win a belt, that eventually Canelo would want. And now he wants it. He's looking at your belt, and he's saying he wants that belt. Canelo has said repeatedly, my plan is become undisputed at 168 pounds. I'm going to be active. I'm going to stay in the gym. I'm going to fight in December, in February, in May, in September, possibly in December. I'm going to be active. I'm going to be fighting because I want to stay active. I want to stay sharp. That way I'm at my best when I fight the very best. Meanwhile, we have these other fighters that aren't doing anything. None of them. Billy Joe wasn't fighting anybody. Billy Joe was fighting an old Murray. An old Murray. Right? But guess what? He had something Canelo wanted. He had the WBO strap. He had a piece of the puzzle that he wanted. That's why he fought him. That's why he gave him a life-changing payday. A life-changing payday. Because he had something Canelo wanted. That's why he did it. Smith, however, did win a tournament. I will say that. He was ranked number 1 by many. Became a bum overnight after Canelo beat him. And of course, there's a Yildirim fight. But why Yildirim? If he fought Yildirim, that means he should be able to fight anybody. If he fought Yildirim, why can't he fight Charlo? If he fought Yildirim, why can't he fight Andre now? What did Yildirim do? What did he do to deserve it? Right? We got dudes out here begging for the fight, Canelo fight and shit. It's funny, but they're begging for it. That's what they're doing. Anytime you need to say, well, what did he do to deserve it? What about me? Anytime you need to do that, all right, that is some weak sauce shit. Okay? That's what that is. How much do you need to degrade yourself as a proud champion? How degrading is it to you as a champion in a weight class? It's not even Canelo's. How much must you degrade yourself to put yourself as a stay busy fight for Canelo? Like how much, like even I have more respect for Charlo and for Andrade than their so-called fans. Even I have more respect for them than his own fans. His own fans don't really respect him like that. His own fans want him to be Canelo's stay busy fight. How sad is that? That's sad. Well, he fought Yildirim in February. What did he do? He could have fought Charlo. He could have fought Charlo in February. You wanted Charlo to be a stay busy fight? You want Andrade to be Canelo's stay busy fight? How sad is that? Well, excuse me, but I think Jamal and Andrade, although they're not really doing anything talent-wise, they're more than a tune-up, right? You would think, right? Unless you're admitting they're tune-ups. They're more than stay busy fights, right? Right? Well, in my opinion, I'm going to give your favorite fighters more credit than you give them. Andrade isn't a tune-up. He's not the guy you call up to fight between two title fights. Okay? Charlo is not a tune-up. He's not a guy you call to fight 2 months before your fight with Billy Joe Saunders. Unless you want to come out and say, no, they're trash. Like Canelo should totally take them up as a tune-up in between two title fights. That's totally what they are. Then you don't think much of them if that's what you're calling for. Because you haven't stopped and think about what you're asking for. Even Andrade had to degrade himself. He had to degrade himself in front of the world. But Canelo said, yeah, you're a champion, but what have you done? Who have you fought? You haven't fought anybody. Yeah, well, neither did Rocky Fielding, and you fought him. What did Yildirim do? Like, so you're telling me you have to point out Canelo's stay busy fights? Those are the fights you have to point at? To say, wow, you fought him in a stay busy fight. Why can't you fight me? I thought you valued yourself more than that, Andrade. I really did. I thought you guys valued Charlo more than that. I really did. Why are you degrading them to be a stay busy fight for Canelo? Like what? Why are you begging to be a stay busy fight for Canelo? Well, why did they get the opportunity? Like because they're stay busy fights. I mean, just think about what you guys are saying. Oh, but like they're using this forever. Like, well, why did he fight Yildirim, but he can't fight Charlo? Like, what do you mean? Look, if Yildirim was a mandatory that was like a real threat, and Canelo felt like, you know what, I'm gonna win this fight, but man, I'm probably gonna like take some punishment. I'm not gonna fight him in February. I'll just fight him in May for Cinco de Mayo weekend. Right? That's what I'll do. That's exactly what I'm going to do. But no. Like, what is it that people don't understand? You guys understand that Canelo could have easily not fought anybody in February, and he would still be considered active. Nowadays, if you fight twice in 5 months, that's active as fuck. Right? But since he's fought 3 times in 5 months, you want to use his stay busy fight in between as some type of ammunition to point out that, well, he fought him, why can't he fight this guy? 92-8KU, how's it going? Ignorant Boxing, Coco Boxing the Don, Ignorant Boxing, I Buy Houses, how's it going? Make sure you hit my like button, guys. Hit the bell, select all so you're notified every time DStyleBoxing comes on live. We'll be doing more afternoon videos moving forward. All right. Why are you degrading these guys? Are you propping them up? Or are you degrading? Because it's coming off as you're degrading yourselves. That's what it's coming out as. You know what I mean? Canelo never walked up to like here's the difference between what Lara did and what Andrade did. Besides the delivery, besides not being on, besides all the obvious things, which are all true, and I agree with all those things. Great points by people that have made them. But the main difference was, and aside, I mean, Lara didn't move. His daddy wasn't holding his hand. Okay, his daddy wasn't holding his hand. He didn't walk him over. He didn't do all that. How sad is it to have daddy accompany you to call somebody out? Like, how embarrassing is that, Andrade? But here's the difference. Lara went up to the podium and he said, I want to challenge myself. I want to fight the best, is what he said. Right? They said, come on, Canelo. Let's give people the fight they want. Now, whether you agreed with that or disagreed with that, that's what he said. Okay? Like Lara sold it as, this is the fight people want, so fight me. Andrade sold it as, oh, come on, you fought Yildirim and you give him a shot. You give me a shot. If Lara would have gone up there and said, Canelo, mira, tú le diste la oportunidad a Voldemir y a Cintrón y a Rhodes, ¿por qué no me puede dar la oportunidad a mí? Like, that would have been weak as fuck. Right? If he would have gone up there and he would have said, hey, you give Rhodes an opportunity, why can't you fight me? That's not what Lara said. Lara didn't say, hey, you give this guy and that guy an opportunity, so give me an opportunity, please. No, he said, hey, I think people want this fight. I think this is the best fight in the best. Let's do it. That's what Lara told Canelo. Andrade showed up with his dad, bro. I think we all love our dads, but we don't have our dads like, do you still have your dad? All right. Now I don't have my dad anymore, RIP. But for those of you that still do, it's a blessing. But like when you need an oil change, like, do you still call your dad to come help you do it, or better yet, do you have him like go with you to go get the oil change? When you get a flat tire, do you call your dad to come help you? When you go to a doctor's appointment, do you have your dad still go to the window over there, to the receptionist, and say, yeah, it's my son's doctor's appointment today? We're just signing in. What are you doing? Plus, Lara and Canelo were in the same division. All right? They were in the same division. What's going on here? And Lara had already taken challenges. Lara fought Paul Williams when nobody wanted to fight Williams. Nobody wanted to fight Paul Williams at the time. At welterweight, nobody wanted to fight the dude. Lara fought him and then got robbed. Okay? Now that was a robbery. So he was trying to make the fights happen. What the fuck has Andrade done? So the message is very simple. Yes, it's true. Like Yildirim wasn't mandatory. So he had to, at some point, get the mandatory out of the way. He got it out of the way between two major fights. You know, I have no idea what the criticism is, right? If you don't want to earn it, then you're going to have to just wait in line. Yeah, Lara dominated Trout. Absolutely. I forgot about that one. Knocked him down really good in YYMX. Absolutely. It was clear outside of a Floyd Mayweather who was no longer going to campaign at 154, Lara was the top dude. Lara and Canelo were the two top guys. So when they said, hey, I think we got to make this fight because I want to fight with the best. He wasn't putting his hand out saying, well, you gave Rhodes a shot. You give Haddon a shot. Well, what can I get a shot, Canelo? What would Haddon do to deserve it? Like, what would it be? Like he didn't do all that. He just looked at him and he said, hey, I want to fight. You want to fight or not? But that's what he did. He didn't stay there to argue. He didn't say anything. He just said, look, I just want to fight you. That's all I want to do. Like Lara almost had a demeanor like, look, bro, if you don't want to, just say you don't want to, it's all good. He wasn't asking, he wasn't begging, he was telling Canelo he wants to fight him. There's a difference. Andrade had to degrade himself and put out stuff like, oh, I could have been Yildirim. I could have been Rocky Fielding. That's sad, bro. That is sad. Plus, what makes Andrade special? Why should Canelo pick him over Charlo, over Benavidez, over Plant? What makes any of these guys so special that they just, they should be next? What have they done to show that they should be next? Who dictated and who decided that they should be next? Especially they don't even fight in Canelo's division while he's trying to collect the belts. Especially then. Now, Fight Doctor saying I'm making excuses for Canelo. Can somebody name me one excuse I made for Canelo? I have no idea what he's talking about that I'm making excuses for Canelo. I have no clue what he's talking about. When I haven't even started saying why they shouldn't. I'm not saying they shouldn't get the fights. I'm just saying they got to wait their turn. If it's a gauntlet y'all want, like if Canelo needs to go through the gauntlet, right? Like because that's all I keep hearing. Jamal and Andre should not fight each other. Canelo should fight them. Right? The crown is heaviest to the one that wears it, all that, right? Okay, well, if he needs to fight, if none of them are going to fight each other, if Jamal and Andre are not going to fight each other, if none of them are going to fight Benavidez, if Benavidez is not going to fight any of them, if Plant's not going to fight any of them, and vice versa, okay? If none of these guys are going to fight each other, and instead the narrative is, oh, Canelo needs to go through the gauntlet. You know what I mean? Please understand, I'm not even saying, no, don't do the gauntlet. That's not even what I'm saying at all. All I'm saying is, if you want a gauntlet, then you're going to wait your turn because you're not doing anything anyway. You're not risking anything anyway. You're not challenging yourselves anyway. So just sit there and wait your fucking turn. As simple as that. Once Canelo becomes undisputed in September, if Plant doesn't puss out, once he does that, once he gets the belt, then the sky's the limit. People forget. People are acting like Canelo's like in his late 30s and he's on his way out and he really needs to fight Charlo now before it's too late. He's only 30 years old. And I'm not saying that to say, oh, there's enough time to make the fight. No. What I'm saying is you need to either work for it like Lara did, and he ended up getting the fight. He didn't have to wait, and he didn't have to cross his fingers and hope Canelo is generous enough to give him the fight. He worked for it. He's like, you know what? Hey, Canelo just beat this motherfucker right here, Trout. Some people thought the fight was close. Let me go out there. Let me school Trout. And then people have no choice but to do a comparison. They will have no choice. He went on, he fought, Williams got robbed, before that. That's what happened. This idea, like people are looking at it reversed. Like it's like, no, Charlo, why should Charlo take any risk? Like y'all acting like it's Canelo that's not taking risk. And if all you got is, well, he didn't do anything to get in, like, then that's weak as fuck. It's weak as fuck. Let me tell you something. Tell you guys something. What's going on in Blood? JC Orlando Chavez. Anali Jaramillo, Chris, 92 AKU. Undisputed takes priority over everything. I know the channels that have been here for years now contradicting themselves. That's on them. But the tables are as soon as one of your favorite fighters going for undisputed, I know what y'all gonna do, right? You're gonna say oh, now it's about now undisputed is gonna matter all of a sudden, right? Or you're gonna do the trick where it's like, well, y'all said it was more important, so I guess I'm gonna have to be for it too. Like it's whatever to me. It really is. Undisputed first is blood, absolutely. It's time for Caleb Plant. Caleb Plant was one of the dudes that we're mentioning, by the way, that Canelo was avoiding, okay? Like, he's not testing. Well, why doesn't he fight Plant? I remember the first time Canelo fought at 168, they brought up all these names. Why is he fighting Fielding? I mean, why not fight the real champion in Smith but I mean, we know he won't fight Plant. Like that's the type of shit y'all were saying. Now, people are changing their tune. Well, Fight Doctor, that's your opinion. Fight Doctor seems to believe that his opinion is a fact, right? Like it's not. Beating world champions is beating world champions. Hey, Fight Doctor is the same dude. I mean, no division is weaker than the heavyweight division, and like they haven't knocked out like a bunch of dudes. At the end of the day, hey, what's going on, Mr. Sinister? What's going on, Mr. Sinister? How's it going, brother? Not a two coup. Stop being sensitive, brother. Nothing racist about that. Stop. Everybody calling everything racist now. Okay. Jake Paul takes Floyd's hat. Oh, that's racist. Like, stop. Okay. Yeah. Crawford fought a week like Undango, but guess what? I gave him credit because it was undisputed. That's who was there. It's like if you win the Super Bowl and the teams were weak that year, then hey, guess what? You're still a Super Bowl champion. Like you don't get to say, yeah, but like the Chiefs couldn't make it to the Super Bowl because Mahomes was hurt. And that's the only reason so and so won the Super Bowl. Like, you know what I mean? Oh, the Rockets only won it because the Bulls no longer had Jordan. So like so what? Like they still won the NBA championship. T. White, they're world champions, brother. Like, stop playing semantics with the words, brother. Okay? Everybody say it. He beat world champions. It triggers Fight Doctor. You know what I mean? And now Canelo will be the only champion in the one world. He'll be the guy in the division. Absolutely. Duval, he's playing semantics with the word is what he's doing. That's all he's doing. Okay? That's literally all he's doing. There was no complaining at all when Crawford did it. None. Now that Canelo is going to go for undisputed, all of a sudden people have all these problems with it. All of a sudden they have all these issues with it. Now you're good, Mr. Sinister. You're good. They got all these issues with it all of a sudden. Right? All of a sudden we have an issue with undisputed. All of a sudden, like Wilder is not in the undisputed picture. All of a sudden, there's a problem with undisputed heavyweight. All of a sudden. You know what I mean? All of a sudden, Joshua Ramirez, I mean, it's undisputed, but it's not really a big deal, though. The competition's kind of weak. All of a sudden, nobody was saying that when Crawford was in the division. I give credit to everybody, right? That's up there, you know? T. White, you use the championships to as a gauge, nonetheless, brother. Otherwise, we wouldn't know anything. Okay? I've seen you use them all the time. Stop. Chill out, 92. Plant thinks Billy Joe got underpaid, so he's going to price himself out. I mean, did he get underpaid? I mean, who's he to decide that he got underpaid? Like, you know what I mean? For some, like, dude, you're not a B side, brother. You're a Z side. That's what Plan is. Unless Plan could present me other options where he could make more money, I don't want to hear it at all. I'm a firm believer that if you're going to make more than 3 times the amount you've ever made, it's a duck. That's my number, 3 times. Hey, unless he doesn't think he made $1 million, I don't know. Platt probably is going to duck. And guess what? Like people that just don't like Canelo are going to side instead of putting pressure on Plant. They're going to side with him, and they're going to make up narratives that it's Canelo, and that's sad as fuck. And everybody knows that's what's going to happen. Everybody knows that's what's going to happen. Everybody. How much does Plant want? I have no idea. None. If Plant doesn't fight Canelo, then I want the only pass I'll give him. This is the motherfucker fights Benavidez. That's it. That's the only fight I'll say, well, at least he's fighting Benavidez. That's it. I agree, Blood. He should. I just watch all the people that are like down talking to fight now. As soon as Plant ducks the fight, all of a sudden they're gonna be all pro Plant. All of a sudden, oh, Canelo didn't want this real work. Oh, why? Guess why the fight didn't happen? Blah 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 blah. Where you at, Plant? Caleb Plant doesn't stand a chance. that rhymes, actually. It really does. Now, as far as people calling 168 weak, okay? Historically, because it's a young division, 168 has always been weak. Okay, it was weak when Ward fought there. It was weak when Calzaghe fought there. It was weak when Frotz fought there. It was always a weak division. But it was, for a while it became a competitive division. But like this idea that, oh, well, but it's weak though. Like, I mean, come on, bro. I don't have a problem at all with Canelo trying to unify the division at all. It'll be good for boxing to have one unified champion at 168 and everybody could challenge him for the championship, old school style. Okay? Inside reporter in the building. I appreciate the support, brother. Says Andrade never beat a world champion to win both his titles. He twice fought for a vacant titles. He never unified and only held WBO titles. Why can't these guys be pressured to fight each other? Why is everyone like, I get the whole like, well, Canelo is the big name, blah blah blah. I get that, but at the end of the day, it's not impossible for these guys to fight each other at all. Triple G's out here waiting for a handout. Charles waiting. Charles just called out Canelo, by the way. Oh, let's fight in September. I'm ready. Like, dude, you know he's trying to make the planned fight. You know what I mean? Get the fuck out of here, dude. All right? Get the fuck out of here. Like, you know, like, get the fuck out. Well, Apple, the highest bidder is Canelo by far. By far, it's the highest bidder. You know what I mean? Hold on, guy. Let me check something really quick. All right, my bad. I just wanted to check the mic really quick. Triple G is triple duck. Look, man, Triple G fans, I'm sorry, but a lot of them are delusional. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. They're delusional as fuck. Okay? I mean, like, they don't seem to understand the concept that Canelo's moved on, and if he wants a Canelo fight, he's going to have to move up. Okay? These dummies always support the wrong people. Supporting Boo Boo and shitting on Canelo makes no sense. Canelo has been giving y'all way more than Andrade. Fans like these water down the sport. I mean, look, I mean, well, when you have to point at Canelo's stay busy fights to show that he's fighting weak opposition, when like stay busy fights by definition are weak opposition, then I just don't know what to tell you. You know what I mean? In fact, you know what? Since people want to talk like that, let's do this. First of all, it should be understood by all boxing fans that if you are active, like stay busy fights don't count in terms of your resume. They're just there to help you stay busy. Okay? So that's number one, by the way. But hey, you know what I mean? So in 1992, let's do this. Let's do this. Hold on. Hold up. Second, guys. In 1992, all right? That's going to kind of let you guys know here right now, okay? At 1990, in October of 1991, Pernell Whitaker beat Jorge Paez. All right? For like he beat him in a he defended his lightweight championship, okay? In his next fight, he fought Harold Brazier, who was 78-10. That was in January of 1992. He came back in May of 1992, and he fought Jerry Smith, who was 12-13, and he knocked him out in Mexico City. Later that year, in December, after he fought Rafael Pineda in July, he came back in December, and he fought Ben Baez, who was 7-4. Then he went on to fight Buddy McGirt, then Julio Cesar Chavez. I mean, that's a hell of a back-to-back there. Santos Cardona, and then Buddy McGirt. 93 and 94 were a hell of a year for Pernell Whitaker. Okay? But I'm sure nobody was saying, why are you fighting Benji Marquez when you're already a world champion who was 18-8, Pernell? When he won his vacant world title in August of 1989, he came back in December of 1989, and Pernell Whitaker fought a dude that was 10-18 in Italy. So this idea, oh, they wouldn't do this, they wouldn't fight a Yildirim, the legends wouldn't do it. Like, first of all, Yildirim wasn't a dude with a losing record. Yildirim was a top 25 fighter either way. He had a pretty good fight against Anthony Durrell, who was a reigning world champion, who I didn't see videos after videos calling Anthony Durrell a bum. But you know why it's not a big deal? Because they were just stay busy fights for Pernell. That's all they were. They were stay busy fights. They're not a big deal. But, greats like Sugar Ray Robinson, you know why they're okay that Pernell fought those fights? Because in between those fights, he was fighting world champions or the number one contender. Or you know what I mean? Like, okay, so he had an easy touch right before he fought McGirt Chavez. All right? It's okay to have stay busy fights. Everybody does it. If you're busy, you're going to fight stay busy fights. No one's going to fight 6 killers in a year. Okay? But Sugar Ray Robinson wouldn't do shit like that. Right? Not Ray Robinson. You know what I mean? Ray Robinson wouldn't do that. All right, so let's go over Ray Robinson's resume. You know what I mean? In the middle of Ray Robinson's career, I'm just going to look at some of these records here, okay? Ray Robinson fought a dude with a 25, 33, and 11 record while he stayed busy because he had a fight the next month. He was staying busy. He fought a guy with a 61 and 30 record. Okay, he fought a guy with a 17, 14, and 3 record in the middle of a title reign. But the great Julio Cesar Chavez, he never did those bullshit stay busy fights, right? They're stay busy fights. Look, Chavez in the middle of his reign. All right? Let's go over here. After his fight with Hector Macho Camacho in September of 92, Chavez came back on October 31st in Culiacan, and he fought a guy that was 10-10. I want you to just imagine if Canelo came back next month and fought somebody in Mexico who was 10-10. And just try to imagine all the narratives we'd be hearing right now on YouTube. How many people would just grasp or understand, oh, he's just staying busy? Oh, he just, just a month later, bro, he's keeping himself busy. After his fight with Meldrick Taylor in March of 1990, he fought a guy in Spain that was 5-3. Then he returned to, and this was in July, and then he returned in August to Mexico and fought Russell Mosley, who was 4-3. In 1989, when he had just beaten Jose Luis Ramirez, who was 101, 6-0, Then he beat Roger Mayweather, and then he beat Kenny Vice. He returned to Mexico, and he fought a guy who was 0-1. Now, my point, I'm not saying, hey, I want Canelo to go fight a guy that's 0-1 to justify it. No, that's not what I'm saying. And I'm not even mad at I mean, maybe the 0-1 was on my mob, but still, like, you know what I mean? Um, like maybe he should have fought somebody with a few more fights, but anyway, I don't know how a fight with a world champion, a dude that was 0-1, got sanctioned, but nonetheless, all right. Um, my point is, if Canelo was fighting every month, let's hypothetically, let's say he fought in December, in January, in February, March, April, and May, and he still fought Smith in December, Yildirim in February, and Billy Joe Saunders in May, right? Would anything really change if Canelo was fighting in Mexico against no hopers in January and in March? Would it really matter? Oh, but in April he fought a guy that was 10-10. Would it really matter then? Or would you instead say, you know what? You know, he was just staying busy. It's just how he does it. He stays busy. Would you really say, well, he fought the guy that's 10-10 in January, so why can't he fight Charlo? Like, would you really say that? Fight Doctor, what? Of course, he has a win over Pacquiao, but I'm not sure what you mean by that, though. Like, what's? I never said he was the GOAT. I don't know, you're talking to somebody else, but I think Canelo's up there, though. You know what I mean? Nobody's saying they want man and water, but what are they doing, though? Obviously, I thought the Billy Joe Saunders fight was a good fight. People were excited for that. Look at the atmosphere, and a lot. It was trending #1 on social media, like when it was happening. So there you go. T White, but Yildirim's hot garbage. What about? I just read you some names that these like all-time greats fought in between big fights, right? I just read them to you. 0-1, dudes with losing records. Like you can't, like I'm just saying, like let's put some perspective in it. But hey, if Yildirim's hot garbage, let's look at Jamal's resume. Right? Let's look at that. Now, if you only fight twice a year or once a year, then we're just gonna judge who you like every fight differently than if you fight every other month. Every other month, we understand. Okay, that's a stay busy fight, right? He's gonna fight Juan Macias Montiel. Juan Macias Montiel. If I doctor, jump on, brother. You want to jump on? Juan Macias Montiel. Okay? I don't think so. Bye, doctor. You want to jump on, brother? Let me know you want to jump on. Let me know. If you want to jump on, let me know, brother. So I got to do. Just let me know. All right? Does Fight Doctor want to jump on before I log out? All right, cool. Go ahead, Fight Doctor. Jump on, brother. We're waiting on Fight Doctor to jump on. Fight Doctor, you're live.
Fight Doctors in the house on Rick James status as always. What's going on, sir?
What's going on, brother? How you doing?
I'm doing well, doing well, doing well. Thank you for
What's
having me
I
on.
mean, you seem to be on a campaign that Canelo's avoiding Charlo and who's the other guy? Benavides, right? That those are the two guys you chose. Not everyone picks the same guys, you know what I mean? But you chose that those are the guys, right?
Well, here's what I'm saying, right? I'm saying that right now, Alvarez, it's been my contention for a while that Alvarez is the most protected fighter in boxing. And I still believe that to be true. In that right now he's taking the path of least resistance. Now, Alvarez fought tough in the Golovkin fight and in the Jacobs fights. Those were tough fights. Those were the fights that I felt that he needed to fight. So, listen, Alvarez was matched tough at 154. Okay, he fought Laura there, he fought Trout there. Those were tough fights. And then, of course, he fought Mayweather there. Those were tough fights. But those fights, look, there's some space between then and now, right? So the last real challenge that I feel Alvarez has faced was Jacobs, and Jacobs was 4 fights ago.
Okay, let me ask you this, Fight Doctor. Who has a better resume other than Manny Pacquiao? Which active fighter has a better resume than Canelo?
Nobody.
So how is he the most protected fighter?
Well, who has he been fighting lately?
No, but you said you didn't say he's protected. You didn't say he's one of, you said he's the most protected. So how can you have the best resume but be the most protected?
So here's the deal, right? And the two are not mutually exclusive. There's always something going on with, when Alvarez makes these fights, there's always something extra going on with the weight, with whatever it might be, the judges, the gloves, whatever it might be. Okay, and that all figures into the equation of him being the most protected fighter in boxing.
So do you think he was protecting himself when Billy Joe Saunders asked for a bigger ring and he said, okay, fine, give him a bigger ring?
No. That figured into Billy Joe Saunders' advantage. But at the end of the day, who is Billy Joe Saunders?
Well, let me ask you this: like, who has Jamal Charlo? Like, it's your opinion that Jamal would be a better challenge than Billy Joe, but what has Jamal done to prove he's done more than Billy Joe? That is more than
he has the win over Devin Yanchenko. That's one thing that stands out off the top of my head, right? And okay. I think if you were to ask honest boxing fans and not fanboys, but if you were to ask honest boxing fans who are maybe the top 3 or 4 biggest challenges that Alvarez could face right now, I don't think Billy Joe Saunders would be at the top of that list, at the top of their lists. He wouldn't be at the top of my list. Okay.
Yeah, but we know this. Let's be honest for a moment. If it wasn't Canelo, but instead it was Jamal Charlo who moved up to 168, and then he beat Smith, then beat Billy Joe Saunders, and he had 3 of the 4 belts. We all know that there wouldn't be all this vitriol that we see right now. We wouldn't see all of a sudden nobody cares about Undisputed. We wouldn't see any of it. But since Canelo's doing it, and it's not who you specifically want him to fight, all of a sudden there's an issue. Because here's the thing, right? You're saying Jamal and Benavides, right? There's some other people that are very critical of Canelo, but they have a different contention. To them, the Jacobs fight was a joke of a fight. It was not a good fight, right? I've seen people go as far as call Jacobs a sellout because he didn't really try to beat Canelo and stuff like that, right? So you have people that don't think much of the Jacobs fight, and in fact they don't think much of any of these guys, and are saying that Canelo should move up and fight better beat because that's the real smoke he's ducking by fighting all these other no hopers, right? There's some people saying no, the guy he should fight is Bivol. That's the guy he should fight. There's some other people, again, that don't like Canelo that are saying, oh, Canelo's playing all these games. He's going to fight all these guys just to duck a third Triple G fight because he knows he will not win a third fight. You know what I mean? He went 168 to avoid Triple G's third fight. DAZN wanted to pay him all his money, still didn't want to make the fight. So different people want different things. You just happen to want Charlo and Benavidez. Me, I want all the above. Okay, like don't get me wrong. I'm not saying don't fight Charlo. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that if Charlo is not going to do what he needs to do, right, to put himself in better position, right, to make the fight quicker, then I guess if he's willing, then I guess he just needs to be willing to wait in line, right? Because if the idea is that it's going to be a gauntlet, like Canelo needs to fight everybody and none of them have to fight each other, then they all need to wait their turn. And they're going to have to just wait. Like Charlo's not even fighting this division, bro. He's not even fighting 168.
Listen, if your argument is that there's a lot of ducking going on in boxing, well, sir, you are preaching to the choir. I agree wholeheartedly. There is an unconscionable amount of ducking going on in boxing right now. It's not just Alvarez. So if your understanding is that I'm just solely blaming Alvarez, let me clear the record, right? Let me set the record straight right now. Everybody is doing it, not just Alvarez, okay?
Including, like, your contention that Charlo, Andrade are participating in the ducking as well.
It seems to me that, these guys, listen, when the Charlo Benavidez fight was first mentioned, I was on board with that 100%. Like, yeah, that fight needs to happen. Because it seems to me that if either of those guys want to force a fight with Canelo, then beating each other is the way to go about doing it, right? Because now you just beat the guy who is considered one of Canelo's bigger challenges. So now Canelo has to come see you. And the true fight fans will recognize as such, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that fight needs to happen. And as far as I can tell, somebody is ducking. And like I said, there's an unconscionable amount of
fact. What do you make of the fact that Jamal has publicly called out his own brother for turning down a Canelo fight? That he turned down $15 million and did not want to fight. He said, I wouldn't duck $15 million to fight Canelo. Until this day, Jamal is very complimentary towards Canelo, which his brother seems to not like. And people may say, well, he was mad at his brother. Well, I think the truth just came out. Instead of protecting his brother, he decided to hurt his brother by maybe saying something that was true. You know?
Well, look, there's an old saying, the truth hurts. So if Jamel indeed ducked or turned down
Jamal.
15, Jamal. Well, if Jamal indeed turned down $15 million to fight Alvarez, well, I think that was stupid. Okay, and I have no explanation of why he would want to do that. I mean, why? You know, it seems to me that if you're offered $15 million to fight Alvarez, well, there's nothing but upside there. So why would you not take that deal? I don't get it.
Now let me ask you, is there really, like, do you really believe the planned fight is a terrible fight? Like, you don't think that's a fight that, to avoid any claims, because I understand you're saying belts don't really mean anything. That's not what makes a champion. However, what titles do is give someone a claim to the throne, per se. Or kind of like, did you ever watch Game of Thrones?
I watched it occasionally, but I never really got into it.
Well, just in general, like when someone had a claim to the throne, right? So it at least gives you a claim to it. It doesn't mean you are in the throne. It's just like a claim to it, you know? So by collecting all the belts, I would say you're in a severe minority if you don't think becoming undisputed makes you the champion of the division.
Well, so I would defer to Roger Mayweather and say that most casual fans don't know shit about boxing. And at the end of the day, the IBF, IBO...
This circle right here, brother, 35 people watching right now are hardcore boxing fans. Casuals don't watch boxing talk on YouTube. You know what I mean? We're all hardcore fans around here.
All right, but at the end of the day, we have to have some honest. We have to be willing to have some intellectually honest discourse and face the facts, right? So now the facts.
No, facts are facts, right? So
okay, so look, let's.
The facts are. Oh, go ahead, and I'll make my point afterwards. Go ahead.
Then listen, I am not afraid of the facts, okay? And if we're going to deal with the facts, then let's deal with the facts. Now, Now, first, let me ask you a question. Do you have any problem with recognizing Jack Johnson as the legitimate heavyweight champion of the world?
I have no problem with that at all. Why?
All right. So then my question is, if you recognize Jack Johnson as the legitimate heavyweight champion of the world, then where was the WBC? Where was the WBA? Where was the IBF? Where was the WBO? Where were these organizations when Jack Johnson was the heavyweight champion?
Didn't exist because boxing wasn't as organized back then.
All right. So my question is, if they didn't exist then how do they all of a sudden magically have some type of credibility now? I mean, look, the IBF was created in 1985. They created a title out of thin air. Same for the WBC, created in 1962. Created their title out of thin air and just started handing these titles out. And all of a sudden, we are
Well, you know what that's saying, though, Fight Doctor? That's like saying, did the Green Bay Packers win a bunch of NFL championships before there was a Super Bowl?
They did.
Okay, so does that mean that the Super Bowl championship and trophy is illegitimate because it didn't exist back then?
No, not at all.
Well, then why is that the case with boxing championships?
But I think you're comparing apples to oranges because, see, in order to win the Super Bowl,
I think you know I made a good point. That's what I think I know.
Well, okay. Well, let me finish my point. In order to win a Super Bowl, you have to go out and prove it by beating the best teams available, where there's no question. So when you win a Super Bowl, when you are a Super Bowl champion, you are the lone team standing at the top of the hill.
Right. I agree. Yeah.
The WBC, WBA, WBO, IBF arbitrarily decide who is and who is not a champion.
I am glad you're saying that.
Have been doing so for years.
So let me add to your point. So because you're making some phenomenal points, which I think we could come to this understanding, right? So in the NBA, do teams get to wait and do they get to just kind of wait, do nothing, and wait for LeBron and the Lakers to play them for a championship? Or do they have to play other teams, and eliminate other teams to eventually move themselves up the bracket?
Well, they have a playoff system in place where the top teams from each conference play each other and decide who's going to represent that conference. And then the top teams from each conference play each other to decide who's going to be the champion.
So this is what's going on right now with Canelo. Okay. It's like if the Lakers were playing the Hawks and, maybe some other teams that people don't really want to see them play. Like, I really want to see them play the Clippers. I don't follow the NBA like that anymore, but let's just say the Clippers are like a top team. And let's say the Celtics. Like, I want to see them play those guys. I don't want to see them play those. But then like the Celtics and the Clippers are kind of like not participating. And they're just waiting for the Lakers to play them. Like, they don't want to engage with the other teams and challenge themselves. They're just waiting around, right? And then we have people saying, well, the Lakers aren't real champions because they're not facing everybody. You know what I mean?
Okay, that's the
situation we have right now.
But here's the problem with your analogy, right? So the NBA model doesn't work here because the NBA, it decides its rankings by wins and losses, solely by wins and losses. That determines how you are ranked in their playoff system, right? Mm-hmm. The best team, the number one team has the best record. The number two team has the second best record. The number three team has the third best record, so on and so forth, right? Sanctioning organizations, on the other hand, determine their rankings by what?
Well, I mean, it's definitely not as organized as the NBA. You know what I mean?
Sanctioning organizations determine their rankings by who pays sanctioning fees.
Well, it is true that, look, there has been cases where the promoters have paid certain sanctions, to kind of put guys in rankings that they don't belong in, you know what I mean? But there's also been cases of fighters that have fought their way up the rankings and left them no choice but to give them a title, and they've even gone as far as to sue the sanction organization to get the title shot. You know what I mean? So it's not like, I think I've seen both happen. Now, my point is not to draw a accurate parallel between. It's not going to be 100% correct or parallel because NBA and boxing are just different. I was just trying to get an understanding from you of what exactly is going on with this scenario with Canelo and everybody else. Like, one thing's for sure, I don't think Canelo needs to pay anybody to be ranked high when it's clear that he's just the best and everybody knows it. You know what I mean? So
Well,
right now, okay, you said, this is what you said. You said that in order for Canelo to be the champion at 168, he needs to, one, fight a guy that's not even fighting 168 in Charlo, and two, fight Benavidez, who couldn't even make weight for one of his previous fights. You
no,
cannot reward people for not making weight for the division they're engaging in, right?
no, that's not the contention that I was making. So in my mind, in order for Alvarez to be the champion at 168, then he would have to beat the champion. Now, in the case of super middleweight, I believe the lineal title there is vacant, in which the top two guys in the division would need to fight.
Who was the lineal champion? Like, who was the lineal champion?
The last lineal champion at 168 was Andre Ward.
So why was he the champion if he never fought Butte?
Because he cleaned out the division. That's why.
How did he clean it out when it was Butte still out there when all that happened?
He beat the guy who beat Butte. I'm sorry, no.
Talking about Froch. He beat Froch, and since Froch beat Butte, and then he became a champion after he beat Butte?
I forget exactly how he established the new lineage, but Ward essentially cleaned out the division, and he beat the best guys there.
Let me just go on record that I agree with you that Ward was clearly the man in the division, and I would even say the lineal champion of the division. I agree with that, right? But my thing is, how is it any different if Canelo collects all the belts and becomes undisputed at 168 pounds, right? No one is saying he's finished and there's no more, like, as a champion that he can defend that championship against the contenders. Nobody's saying that. But that would make him the champion.
Yeah, no. See, here's the problem with your logic.
Okay.
You can beat all the title holders at 168, but you can do so and having not beaten the best guy at 168. See, that's the problem.
So you're going to kind of hold everyone to the standard of having what makes Benavidez the best at 168? Now, what makes him why can't we call Canelo the best at 168, but Benavidez totally is the best at 168?
Well,
what
honestly,
has Benavidez done to prove it?
I haven't actually done a proper ranking of that division in a while. Okay, but what I do know is that title belts from the sanctioning organizations do not make you a champion, and collecting all of those belts does not necessarily mean you are the best guy in the division.
So if it's not Canelo, who's the best in the division?
Honestly, I would look at this point. I would have no problem ranking Alvarez as the number one guy in the division.
Okay.
But at the same time, in the absence of a lineal champion, he needs to clean out the division if he wants to establish a new lineage. Because look, 168 is very murky. Okay, in terms of who is actually the second best guy there. Okay, or even the best guy. All right. So in my mind,
doctor, if I could just interject for a little bit, I think what you're confusing is the following. Like, it's totally possible for someone to be a lineal. Like, for example, Crawford he didn't stay long enough at 140. He ended up moving up, right? But first, did you consider Crawford lineal at 140?
He cleaned out 140. So yes.
All right. I mean, as soon as he moved up, there was Taylor and Prograis and Ramirez. There was some other guy. He didn't clean it up. Let me just make that clear, right? But my point is, like, I consider him because he became undisputed. To me, that made him lineal, right? But let's say hypothetically, right? Let's say he stayed at 140 and fought Taylor or Prograis, somebody, right? Now, I don't think they would have, but let's just, for hypothetical sake, say they would have beat Crawford. That would then make them the lineal champion, right?
Correct.
Okay. But they didn't clean out any division, right? So my point is, you don't need to clean out a division to be the man in the division. You could be a reigning world champion, but still have hungry contenders lined up to fight you, and you have to. That's why they call it defending the championship of the world. That's why they use the term defend, You know what I mean?
So,
You're defending your
so, so,
championship.
so
In other sports,
traditionally,
you don't. Well, let me just say this: in other sports, you don't like when the Patriots win a Super Bowl, like they're not defending the championship every time they play a game the next year. You know what I mean? Boxers, when they fight somebody for that title, they're defending it, fight after fight, right? It's called defending the championship, right? So just because the division hasn't been cleaned out completely and wiped out, it hasn't eradicated the whole division's existence, right? Just because he hasn't decimated everything doesn't mean he's not the world champion if he collects all four belts. It just means this. It means, yes, Alvarez, you are now the world champion, but you have a hungry contender you need to defend that world championship against, and his name is Benavidez. I think that would be a better way to look at it, but go ahead.
yes. So traditionally, in the absence of a lineal champion, the way that a new lineage is established is when the top two consensus, when the consensus top two contenders in the division fight, and the winner of that fight is recognized as the new lineal champion. Now, the problem with that is if you don't have a consensus top two, I think you can make the argument that perhaps you don't have that currently at 168. Now, let me point to you an example of where the quote unquote undisputed championship falls flat on its face. Right now, in 1985, you had Larry Holmes. He lost. Now, Larry Holmes was the lineal champion. Right? He was the heavyweight champion of the world in 1985. He lost to Michael Spinks, back-to-back fights. 85, I think the rematch was in 86. Now, around about this time, you have the emergence of this guy, 5'11", called Mike Tyson. Okay? Now, because of the machinations of the three recognized belts, quote-unquote recognized belts at that time, IBF, WBC, WBA, Michael Spinks was stripped of the titles that he won from Larry Holmes, which I think was only the IBF, because the WBC, WBA had either stripped or been either stripped or vacated by Larry Holmes prior to the first Spinks fight. But either way, Larry Holmes was the established, reigning, rightful lineal champion when he lost to Michael Spinks. Right now, through the different machinations of the sanctioning organizations, Mike Tyson collected all three of the quote-unquote recognized belts, WBC, WBA, IBF, in the late 80s.
So
86,
you wasn't
87,
champion until
88.
you beat Spinks, is what you're saying, right? Until you beat Spinks.
So at this time, Mike Tyson was the quote-unquote undisputed champion. But he was not the lineal champion because he had not beaten Michael Spinks, who had beaten Larry Holmes.
Are you saying that Canelo needs to beat Andre Ward? Because that's the only way it will make sense to me to become the champion.
So Andre Ward. No. So now let's be intellectually honest. Right now, how it works is when a lineal champion retires or moves up, the title becomes vacant. Now, in Andre Ward's case, both conditions are true. Not only did he move up, he's also retired. So that means his claim to the lineal championship at 168 has been broken because he's left the division and he's retired. All right. So that title was now vacant. Now, in order for Alvarez to fill that vacancy, he would need to be consensus top two, and he would have to fight the other guy who's consensus top two. Right?
Okay, what makes Benavidez consensus top two when you don't believe that fighters should make weight for their fights?
Okay, so I never said that. So let's not put words in my mouth.
I'm not putting words in your mouth. I'm asking you a sincere question. I'm asking you. I'm not saying you said that. I'm asking you.
No, I believe fighters should make weight. So if you are fighting at super middleweight, then you should make 168 pounds. Look, listen, I think that they should bring back same-day weigh-in. Because this weigh-in day before fight business is bullshit, all right? It's rank, unadulterated bullshit. You have guys weighing in a division at one particular division, and on fight night, they come into the ring 2-3 divisions above the contract weight. That's bullshit, okay? That's bullshit.
This is what I'll say, brother. the fact that Benavidez, like I understand that you don't recognize the belt, but he lost his belt because he didn't make weight because of consequences for not making weight. Okay, Canelo fought for that belt, right? Obviously, for what it's worth. Okay. While I understand your point that during the age of Jack Johnson, because let me ask you this: when Jack Johnson beat Burns, right? To you, was he world champion then? When he beat Burns in Australia?
That's a very good question, and a lot of people go back and forth. There's an argument to say yes. There's an argument to say no. Me personally, I just simplify it and I say he became champion when he beat when he beat what's his name? When he beat Jeffries.
Now,
Now
here's
there's an
my
argument.
question. But Jeffries retired and he was gone. And if we're honest, because you said let's be intellectually honest, the only reason they didn't want to recognize, because they didn't do that to Burns when he won the championship, they didn't want to recognize Jack Johnson as a champion because he was black. Okay.
There's no question. I mean,
So
listen,
it was like a race that was a racist reason. Like, oh, you're not really a champion until you beat the real champion, which is he's retired now. You know what I mean? That's problematic to me. So to me, he was world champion when he beat Burns, for the heavyweight championship of the world. Titles were just like the straps were just like ceremonial. That didn't make you the champion. I understand that it's not the belt and stuff like that. But to me, it made him a champion. In today's age, obviously things are different, and we have different organizations now that sanction fights and make fights possible, etc. Like, you know what I mean? Laws made it to where we needed, sanctioning bodies to run it. In the U.S., we have commissions, etc. Things that didn't exist for the most part back then. You know what I mean? So things have definitely changed and evolved into what they are now, for better or for worse. Okay? But right now, what we recognize as the champions are the guys that hold the straps. In my opinion, is there too many of them? Absolutely. Should we reduce it? Absolutely. But make no mistake about it. I mean, it's just the way things run now. But the reality is, if Canelo collects all the belts, there's no better neutral reason that to consider someone the best than if it removes opinion, any possible biases, if he just recognizes the guy that collects all the belts. Now, no one is saying, okay, you collected all the belts, so therefore you're done. And even though we disagree on this, it's all good. My only contention is he'll be the world champion. If he beats Plant, he'll be the undisputed champion because no one else really will have a claim to the throne. No ceremonial claim. That's what the belts are. No one's going to have any claim to it. But that's not saying that there's not contenders out there. That's not saying he shouldn't defend that claim. Right? But I want to give you the last word, brother. I got to get going in a little bit, so I'll give you the last word before I wrap this one up.
Well, I think boxing purists and boxing historians would disagree with your contention that collecting all of the quote-unquote recognized belts fills a lineal vacancy. I don't hold that view at all. I think that again, we have 100 plus years of boxing history that speaks against this whole notion of undisputed. In my mind, when you are the lineal champion, you are undisputed because you have met the requirements to be the champion. And again, I will point back to the example of Michael Spinks and Mike Tyson. So Mike Tyson had the 3 quote unquote recognized belts, but what Michael Spinks had was even greater. Why? Because his title had lineage all the way back to Floyd Patterson. That's how far back the lineage of the title lineage that Michael Spinks had. That's how far back it went. Whereas the lineage of those belts that Mike Tyson was collecting, well, they're not even worth mentioning. I can't even remember where the hell those belts where they came from. Because at the end of the day, IBF, WBO, whomever, they don't create champions. What they do is they create confusion, okay? And they participate in criminal activity, and then they parade these quote unquote champions around as if it really means something. when it does not mean a goddamn thing. The only title that has value in boxing is the lineal title because it stands for something. It means something. It has 100 years of history to confirm it. Whereas when you're talking about the WBC, IBF, the WBO, where the hell do these people come from? I mean, have you ever took the time to research the history of where these organizations
let's not act like the old way was perfect, brother. I mean, they would have let people of color fight for the titles. They would have like this idea that it was just perfect back then, and the way they did it was the way to go. I mean, I'm not really going to agree with that. You know what I mean?
Well, let's look at the WBC and the bullshit that they pull, right? So you had Jamal Charlo, right? Number one contender in the WBC at 160, right?
Okay.
And he was Alvarez's mandatory.
Okay.
So what does the WBC do? What do they do?
I think what you're saying is, I think what you meant to say, Canelo was the champion and Charlo was the mandatory.
Exactly. Charlo was the number one, and he was number one. He was the number one ranked and the WBC mandatory at 160. Alvarez was the champion at 160.
Well, you know what Canelo did though? Now I don't remember exactly when he was named the number one, right? I don't exactly know that, but you know what he did? He fought Jacobs. He went to unify with Jacobs. Remember what he said about the Jacobs fight? That it was a good fight, right?
But listen, I'm not complaining about the Jacobs fight.
Like you can't, in other words, if the belts don't mean anything, I don't know why you would be outraged. Let's say, of what the WBC did, if you don't even recognize.
But I think you're missing the point here. The point here is, and the question was not what Alvarez did. The question here is, what did the WBC
do? Named them they named Canelo the franchise champion, but Canelo never fought at 160 again.
Okay, but again, what did the WBC do? Again, I'm not talking about Canelo here. I'm talking about the WBC.
So I'm not sure if I answered the question or not, but I believe I did. It was about the franchise.
So they named him franchise champion. So the question needs to be asked: why did the WBC deny? All right, why did the WBC deny Charlo his mandatory and invent this fake belt out of thin air? Why? What was the purpose behind that?
Look, no one can justify the franchise belt in any division, just like no one can justify the super championship with the WBA, right?
Can we call the franchise belt by the WBC and the quote unquote super champion belt by the WBA? Can we call it what it is?
What do you call them?
Bullshit. Rank.
So are the other belts
bullshit? And this is how the sanctioning mobs which is what they are. This is how the sanctioning mobs. This is how they collude to protect certain fighters. That's what this is. This is fucking criminal activity. All right.
Let me tell you what I believe happened. The WBC knew that Canelo was going to start moving up to 168, okay? And they didn't want to strip him of the 160 title because if you move up, then they got to strip you, right? So I'm not saying they did a favor, but it wasn't so he could duck Jamal. It was so they don't have to strip him of that quote-unquote status. So if Canelo ever goes back down to 160, they can get a sanctioning fee for a Canelo fight. That's all it was. If we keep it 100% honest, that's what it was.
So I think that you are looking at this with rose-colored glasses. I have a much different view, in my opinion.
Why am I looking at it with rose-colored glasses? I mean,
because at the end of the day, if Alvarez were going to move up to 168 anyway,
right?
Then why would the WBC need to strip him? He just vacate the title.
Because
that doesn't make any sense.
First of all, at the time, brother, nobody knew that Canelo would never go back to 160 or not.
Alvarez knew.
Well, let's say Alvarez knew, but are you certain that the WBC knew?
If the WBC knew that Alvarez was going to move up to 168, then why create this stupid franchise title and award it to him in the first place?
According to you, they're all sense. Brother, but according to you, they're all stupid. So I don't understand why you're so.
No, they're not stupid. They're criminal. That's what they are. They're not stupid. They're criminal. That's what they are.
No, no. So are you saying, like, it's what I wanted to say? So, or like get to, are you saying that the WBC should just stick to just one belt, right? Just the WBC world title, correct? That's what you're arguing?
My argument is that the WBC is a criminal organization, as is the WBA, IBF, WBO, and any other sanctioning mob that you wish to create.
Criminal organizations, as you call them, should they just have one title, like, and not be allowed to have like an extra championship? Is that what you're saying?
What the whole concept of champion is mutually exclusive with what they are trying to pull over right now. How in the hell do you have multiple world champions in the same goddamn weight class by the same goddamn sanctioning mob? How does that shit make common sense?
You're not going to get me to disagree with you that they should just have one champion per, obviously I agree with you 100%. If it was up to me, there'll just be one champion. But what I'm trying to get at is the following, right? On one hand, you're saying fuck these sanctioning bodies and what they're all about, but then you're outraged out of something that they did for Canelo when it had zero effect on the Charlo fight. Canelo was already out of that division. He never fought in that division again when they named him franchise champion of 160. Like, he clearly said it's to allow Canelo to move up in division, but still be a champion at middleweight.
I think you're missing the point here. Because
I'm not missing the point. I explained to you what they did. I'm not missing the point.
Yeah, but I think you're missing the point here. So let me explain. So I think we both agree that these sanctioning mobs are indeed criminal organizations that pull shit out of their ass to invent titles and to manipulate rankings and do whatever the hell it is they do. Sure. All right. So we've spent the last 10, 15 minutes discrediting the sanctioning organizations. However, you wish to recognize a lineal champion based on how many of these trinkets a fighter can collect. Do you not see the problem with that logic?
I don't see a problem at all, because those are what we recognize as champions, brother. Like, I understand you have a fundamental disagreement with that, right? But at the end of the day, it's just like the example I gave you. Like, in the NFL, they didn't always have a Super Bowl, but now they do, right? In boxing, now we have these sanctioning bodies that fighters fight for the titles of. It's just what it is. If you want to call them titleists or whatever you want to call them, I mean, at this point, we're just playing semantics, to be honest.
But at the end of the day, the NFL model does not work here, because in the NFL, the best teams must play each other in order to call themselves a Super Bowl champion. Yes and no
fight, doctor. Like, if you're not scheduled to face another team that could beat you and you're on a different conference, you may never face them. Okay, so it doesn't necessarily.
No, that's not how. I'm sorry, but the best teams. So in a given conference,
I'm not too sure these organizations are more corrupt than when the mob ran boxing. I'm not too sure they're more corrupt than that.
As far as I'm concerned, these sanctioned organizations are the mob.
All right, because so it's a continuation of what we already had.
I can see no appreciable difference between how boxing is run now as opposed to how it was run back in like the 50s. Okay, it's still the same.
Fight doctor, there's fights where guys would negotiate how you're going to win a fight. Like, a lightweight was fighting a middleweight. They would negotiate that if you don't knock me out in so many rounds, I win. That's how they used to negotiate.
Hey, you think that's still not happening today? You think that's still not happening today?
No,
I have news for you, sir. I have news for you, sir. That still happens to this very day. Okay? It does. Trust and believe. Nothing has changed.
Can you give me an example of that happening today? Because I don't know.
There was an example. It was a Bob Arum. It was a Bob Arum promoted fight, and I think he was promoting a fight with Juan Manuel Marquez against some guy, and the opponent for Marquez had came public about what the negotiations for this fight looked like, and Arum was trying to pressure the guy to take a dive. So, yeah, guys are still taking dives. Okay. That's still very much a part of boxing, trust and belief.
Okay. I mean, look, I'm not saying that boxing is clean cut and perfect, brother. What I'm saying is it's never been clean cut and perfect. Okay. It's always had different claims to the throne. It's always had arguments that, Jack Johnson's not really the champion until he fights the guy that's already been retired for years. And it's always been the case. The only difference is that while it's definitely not to that level or that degree, now that Canelo is at 168 pounds, there's just people that have an issue with him being the one collecting the belts. fight. I don't remember you coming out here like for any other fighter arguing that if they collect all the belts, that does not make you undisputed, or that's
dude. I may not.
Can
have
you give
come
me an
on
example of another fight that you make that
Oh,
argument?
I would be more than happy to give you an example. Listen, I'm the biggest Roy Jones Jr. fan. All right, I came up during the Roy Jones Jr. era. I saw all of his fights, HBO fights broadcast like during his prime. I watched all those fights live. All right, so I go back a ways. So I go back before the Roy Jones era. Okay, I remember.
Give me the example.
I remember when Roy Jones was fighting at 154. I watched those fights live. All right.
Right.
Now, Roy Jones went up to 175 and collected all the title belts there. But guess what? Roy Jones's reign as a light heavyweight champion is one of the most fraudulent championship reigns in recent history. Okay? Roy Jones Jr. In fact, Roy Jones Jr. has never, ever held a legitimate title. Except for maybe you can make an argument that maybe the title he won from what's his name? The guy who knocked him out.
You're talking about Tarver or Glenn Johnson?
Tarver. So the title he won from Tarver might have been legitimate, maybe. But outside of that, Roy Jones, his belt at middleweight was illegitimate. His belt at 168 was illegitimate, and his whole title run at 175 was illegitimate.
You weren't impressed that he went to heavyweight and beat John Ruiz? You weren't impressed with that at
all? He
He
beat a paper titleist. Lennox Lewis was the heavyweight champion at that time. So what are you talking about?
No, I'm just saying. I'm not saying. Look. I'm not saying you have to. I think everyone agrees that Lennox was he was like the number one guy at heavyweight. But I didn't ask if you thought he was a real champion or what. I'm just asking if you were impressed that he went up in weight and fought John Ruiz.
No, you asked me to give you an example of an instance where there was a guy who's held belts, all the title belts, and was illegitimate. And look,
I hear you. I agree. Like I see what you're saying about that. But just as a side note, you weren't impressed with what Roy Jones did.
Listen. The fact that Roy Jones was able to go up and beat a top 5 heavyweight, coming from, he started his career at light middle and won a title, a paper title at heavyweight. Yes, that's impressive. But at the end of the day, I'm going to call it as I see it. I'm going to call it for what it is. And it was not a heavyweight championship fight. It just wasn't. Okay.
Was Vladimir Klitschko a lineal champion, in your opinion?
Yes. In my opinion, he was.
Why was he, if he never beat his brother?
His brother, Vitaly retired. Vladimir after Vitaly retired, Vladimir cleaned out the division. So in my mind, he did enough to establish a new lineage. So I have no problem with recognizing Vladimir Klitschko as a legitimate lineal heavyweight champion.
Okay, now keep in mind, I agree with you that he was a lineal champion. I'm not disagreeing, but I'm just trying to like understand here. But he never, like, for example, so he wasn't when Vitaly had the belt, right?
Correct.
Okay, so while Vitaly had the belt, he was not lineal. Vitaly retired, but now let me ask you this. What claim did Vitaly have over his brother that wouldn't allow his brother to be lineal?
So at the time, Vitaly and Vlad were the top 2 heavyweights in the world. And this is after Lewis had retired. So now, in order for a new lineage to be established, the top 2 fighters in the division have to fight. Now, that never happened while Vitaly was still active. Vitaly and Vladimir never fought. So the title remained vacant in Lennox Lewis's absence. Now, Vitaly retired. Vladimir went on to clean out the division and establish a new lineage.
All right. So it was until his brother retired, and then we recognized Vladimir. But what about like Stavern and then Wilder getting a belt?
Again, the WBC, the WBA, the IBF, the WBO, the IB, I don't care who they are. Sanctioning organizations do not. Yeah. I do. The sanctioning mobs do not determine who is or who is not a champion. It doesn't work that way.
So Wilder was never a champion in your eyes at all?
Wilder has never been a heavyweight champion. No. Now what he was is a heavyweight titleist because he held a heavyweight title.
Okay.
there's only one world, therefore there can only be one world champion. So you can't have multiple world champions in the same division at the same time. How does that work?
Okay, so back to Canelo. There's only one world, and if Canelo has all the titles, doesn't that make him the only champion?
No.
Who else is the champion if it's not Canelo?
Again, so traditionally, in the absence of a lineal champion, in order to fill that vacancy, the top two contenders in the division have to fight. Now, if we're going to rank Alvarez number one or number two, and he's beaten the other guy who was ranked number one or number two, then Alvarez would be the lineal champion.
Number one, brother. Smith was considered the number one guy.
Well, was Alvarez number two at the time he did it?
Well, Alvarez was just
so again.
He was gone
again,
for
the top
a year.
two, the top two guys in the division have to fight. So if that has happened, and Alvarez came out on top, then Alvarez is the lineal champion. There's just nothing else to it.
Okay, so let me put it this way. Give me your top 5 super middleweights right now.
Honestly, I would need to hold on a second. Let's look at BoxRec real quick. Let's see what BoxRec has to say.
Can you give me your top 3?
Here, let me just give me a second. I'm going to pull up. The thing about BoxRec's rankings is that they are based on numbers and not opinions. They use a number system, and it is probably the fairest ranking system available right now. So BoxRec has Alvarez 1, Smith 2, Benavidez 3, Jacobs 4, and Caleb Plant number 5.
So he's already won then, right? He's a champion then.
So I think that an argument can be made that he's already the lineal champion.
All right, we made some ground. You know what I mean? Like we're making some ground. We're making some ground. So he's already the champion.
Maybe an argument can be made that he already is, perhaps.
All right. Hey, I think. Hey, brother, but I do. It was a really good conversation. That's right. But I do got to get going. But I appreciate you coming on. Tell everybody where they can find you or whatnot, or what streams you visit and all that stuff before I go.
So they can find me here, of course. They can find me on Raphael Dawkins Combat Radio. They can hit me up on Twitter at THA Fight Doctor, at the Fight Doctor. And they can find me there's a couple other. Trying to think, where else can you guys find? Well, they can start there. Okay, they can start there.
Sounds good.
All right. So listen, thanks for having me, and look forward to continuing this conversation.
All right, man. Have a good one, brother. Hey, shout out to everybody, man. I got to get out of here. I got some stuff to do. Peace out.